Truth Talks. Please, I'm excited about the Truth Talks. They are addressing true fellowship and what it means, what true fellowship and corporate worship looks like according to the Bible.
Where we at? Where are we at in this point in time? Anybody know? 48. Look at that. Eric, keep me honest, because I was all the way back in Samuel for some reason. I was about to start all over with David. Like, bring it back. All right, 48. So let's backtrack a little bit in 48 because 48 kind of starts at the beginning of a particular prayer, right? We rolled out. Remember, Solomon is asking, he's praying for Israel in different points, i.e., if you're here and you do this, if you look here, you will receive forgiveness. Now, I want you to understand that. Let me get to 48 because I want to make sure we were at. As we see, Solomon is revving this thing up. He's kind of coming to a close because in closing, you always want to bring that reminder of how we got here, how we got to this point. We know that the temple is being built. We know the history behind the temple. We know all of the things and we know what it symbolized. But Solomon is now talking a little bit about going forward. The conversation doesn't seem like the things that Solomon is talking about is right then and there getting ready to happen tomorrow. If you listen to some of the warnings, if you are carried away, if you are rebellious, it's as if Solomon is saying, hey guys, we should start looking forward. I know we're in a peaceful place because he's going to talk about that peace. We're in a peaceful place, but if going forward, what does this look like? Where are we at? So let's continue on with Solomon's prayer. I'm going to back up. So we're talking about the enemies and captives, right? And he's talking about looking back to the place they have chosen for your name. And then Solomon says, then you shall hear in the heavens, your dwelling place. Now, if you go back to the beginning, when we first got into the chapter, Solomon knew that the house that was being built was just a what? A focal point, a pinpoint in the world that everybody could look back to for God first. But these people who are already with God, they can look to it for something completely different. The same thing that the other people were looking for, but they have an inside. They know where to look. They've been trained. They know all the things about growing up, being in these tribes, being Israel. So none of this is a mystery when they're telling them to look back. But look at what Solomon is doing. Because before this prayer, what was the only way to be cleansed? That's a loaded question, ain't it? What was the only way for Israel to be cleansed? I mean, you could throw this one out there and you'll say, well, Israel, the way to be cleansed was what? Sacrificing animals, right? That was the way that Israel is to be cleansed. Well, wait a minute. If sacrificing animals is the way for Israel to be clean, and this is what it's supposed to be, why is Solomon just telling everybody all you got to do is look? All you got to do is focus. That might sound strange to people who don't know the history of the Hebrews. Looking on something for the first time ain't been the first time that people has been saved, now is it? Anybody know when the first time people were saved by looking at something? I'm talking about just looking at it. The Asherim on the pole,
right?
Which was in a lot of society. You go look at the medical crest on, even on the corpsman in the Navy, we had it on our crest. They called it caduce, right? They might attest this as something else, but we know that was an attest to something that was coming forward. All you had to do was just with your visual look. But look at what Solomon is doing. Solomon is offering out forgiveness right here, just as a visual. If your people are in a foreign place and they transgress your command, if they look towards this place and pray, is this different? It's funny, is this different than what we've been hearing up to this point? David, when he had an error, he constructed an altar. In fact, he constructed it really quick. Solomon, everybody has constructed an altar, but Solomon said, we have constructed a grand altar that is so great in its salvation that those that come here will be saved, that those that are of a distance will be saved. All they have to do is look. Isn't this what Solomon is asking, what his prayer is saying? Am I saying anything different or going off course? Of course, correct me. But I'm only going with what we're reading right here, a visual. And then you shall, now here's the thing. Go back to 48. And they shall turn back to you with all their hearts and with all their beings in the land of their enemies. Because remember, he's talking about them being captive, taken captive. We know that happens. And they shall pray to you towards the land which you gave their fathers, in the city which you have chosen, and the house you have built for your name. Now listen, here's a little promise that's in the promises that was promised right here in a prayer. And if you don't see it, I mean, we definitely caught it. Daniel prayed a prayer in a land that was far to his, and he looked in this direction. And what was the results for Daniel? His prayers were answered. Whatever Daniel would have did, by according to what Solomon prayed so many years ago, God was still honoring promises. He was still honoring a prayer. Now, I'm going to tell you, because as you go forward, you see, well, how does this line up? Because Solomon is also adding all the things he's in there, because that's why when you see at the very end of it, who read ahead? Hey, I'm the only one that read ahead. Don't worry about it. I promise I won't. I won't tell y'all anything that's not in here. Now they look back to this house that was built in the name of the Father, right? But it said this. Then Solomon said, "Then you shall hear in heaven your dwelling place," because he know that place that they're looking to isn't the place. It's just that focal point, that pinpoint. You and your dwelling place in the heavens will hear their prayers and supplication and maintain their cause. Remember, this is talking a foreign language. And forgive your people who have sinned against you and all their transgressions which they have transgressed against you, and give them compassion before those who took them captive, and they shall have compassion on them. Wow. I mean, we already know the history of it. We already know that Israel went into captivity and they received compassion while in captivity. What compassion is Solomon talking about? What captives? Because Israel, after this prayer, goes into captivity and they stay there for a while. Did they receive compassion and compassion? Yes, they did. But is this the compassion right here that Solomon is praying for, or is this seems like a grander prayer for the people that's sitting in this room? Yes, it's Israel. But do you see what I'm saying? This prayer was for Israel. It extended for Israel, but by Israel being the way they were, this prayer never went away. We still can do these same things that Solomon prayed for in this day and age, because this prayer still stands. God never said, because you prayed that prayer, because of this, he never said the prayer goes away. What he said is the punishment comes if you don't do it. Let's continue on. I'm getting a little ahead. All right. Now here's where this always comes back into play. One thing I have learned about the Bible, what God did in Israel is to always be reflected upon. Why? Not saying it's because God always brings that back to the recollection. Not so much to say to them, this is where I saved you, but this is where the purchase was made. You are now my inheritance. And I think, like, man, I was sitting there thinking today, like, how's that? I really have to think this inheritance thing out, right? Because when did this inheritance get established? When did it established? When did this plan come into play?
The beginning.
In the beginning. So no matter how Israel think that they were, once again, not talking about them not being special, because God says that itself. I don't have to add that. But them themselves were the line that the world would get restitution. They were already planned. So in Israel was the inheritance. You get what I'm saying? And we are benefactors, just like Israel was a benefactor of God's great plan. All right, let's continue on. Oh, look, I didn't even have to do it. Look what happens right here. Oh, man, look at that. Somehow it just jumps out before the page and you get to talk about it. It says, and give compassion before those who took them captive, and they shall have compassion. For they are your people, and your inheritance. Well, these are God's people, right? These is his inheritance. Now, you could get people when you really dig deep into the scriptures. If you point somebody to that and say, hey, here is the Old Testament, the inheritance, go forward. Who receives this inheritance in the New Testament? God has always been working in his own favor. And we should rejoice to be the benefactors of such a great plan. It didn't even have us involved because we are part of that inheritance. All right, so let's finish with Solomon's prayers. Let your eyes be open to the supplication of your servant and the supplication of Israel, to listen to them whenever they call. For you have separated them unto yourself for, and again, an inheritance. We, like Israel, are God's inheritance through Jesus Christ. Israel was dealing with God right there, one-on-one. This was Israel and God as his people, as his inheritance, as the people he ransomed from Israel. So now I'm in Egypt. I always say Israel. So now we see that it's being pointed out. This is more than just Israel being the people. They are the inheritance of God. Now we see why it's all important, why it's coming through the line of Israel, because it came that way so that the world could receive the entire inheritance. For you have separated them unto yourself for an inheritance out of all the people of the earth, as you spoke by the hands of your servant Moses, when you brought your fathers out of Egypt, O Master, or O Lord God. And it came to be, when Solomon had ended praying all these prayers, supplications, that he rose before the slaughter place from his knees. Now, people will say, hey, how do you pray? Standing, sitting, any way you can. But in this instance, Solomon was doing some serious business. It was a heavy load to where Solomon said, I have to drop to my knees. Now, who is he praying where Israel can't see? Because then he's praying for all Israel, all the elders together. So people see this king doing something that most kings wouldn't do unless they understood that it was a what? For a king to take a knee is what?
Got someone higher than you to acknowledge someone.
It is an honor of a higher authority. Now I get it. A lot of people may go here and say, this is how you did drop to your knees and pray. No, I'm going to tell you. What you are seeing is a king understanding that what is on his head may be a crown, but it's something far greater. Oh, man. All right. So Solomon finished praying, right? We're in 55. And he stood up. And then when Solomon stood after his prayers, he blessed all of Israel with a loud voice. Now, here's how he blessed Israel. He didn't bless Israel and say, all y'all going to go out and we're going to make you super rich. He first blessed the Lord. By Solomon blessing the Lord, who did what he promised to Israel. Now watch. Solomon blessed the Lord, who has given rest or peace to his people, Israel, according to all that he's promised. God has kept his promises. Now, remember, we have all of it, the complete story, but right here, we see that Solomon acknowledge what God has done. Now, this is Solomon talking. God know he kept his promises. But this is the thankfulness that we see in what Solomon is doing in his prayer, giving thanks to he who kept his promise. There has not one word failed of all his good word, which he promised through the servant Moses. So right now, up until this point, we know that God has not failed Israel. I mean, that just goes without saying, but we looking at it from the Solomon side in the prayer, right? This is the culmination of everything, or the compound, or the bringing together of everything that has been said or promised to Israel right now up until this point. Solomon has said God has been faithful with Israel without question.
That was it was given to Moses. That was in Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 10 and 11. And you cross over to Jordan and live in the land which your Lord, your God, has given you inheritance. He gives you rest from all your enemies. Yeah. Also, there was nomads before this point too. They had to put the temple up, tear it down, it was constant move, so there was no rest and constant moving either, so.
Mhm.
Now they had a temple, they're no longer nomads.
They have home.
And also, like you had said last week, that, the Solomon, there was no war.
That's it. Peace all around. This is a period of peace. You know, again, I can't put it on there, and I wouldn't sit and go blow for blow with a historian when they say, well, you can't say the history is written like, because they'll tell you this is just mine. Solomon was a man of peace. Why would you? War makes the history. We don't have a lot on Solomon anywhere in history, because peaceful people don't have to document everything they're doing. So when we see a lot of Solomon's story, it's right here. This is the history that we get for this king. It's short. You might get a couple other things sprinkled here in other people's history to say, hey, we made a deal with Solomon and here's his signet. This is as close as we get. But when it comes to this is where we get the understanding of who King Solomon was, the wisest king, and how he operated. So you have to look into the lines, into the page to see that operation of this king, or you might just look at it and say, well, Solomon was the youngest king. He was the wisest king. He built the temple in such amount of years, and boom, you move on. It's a lot that goes into this man. It's a lot that he did because he did it for the Lord, and that's not an easy task for anyone to do such a job. But we all know that if he asks you to task it, is what you're capable of doing. So Solomon, a very capable person, he is finishing up. He's rounding off his prayers. He finishes in 57. He says, "The Lord our God is with us, and as he was with our fathers." Now, the with our fathers stuff, it make you look over the history of him like, well, some of them wasn't. Again, he was always with them. Some of them wasn't with him. And if you stood against him, where Moses said, hey, whose side are you on? And once you make that decision, you're against him. But he's always stood with his people, with his people, just like he did in the past. As we getting there. He does not leave nor forsake us. Now, all of this is all Solomon's side to God. This is not a back and forth conversation. This is Solomon making a solid prayer to God.
I said prayer. The conflict of God answers his prayer, but the promises that God has kept all this time is what he's also acknowledged.
Yes.
Solomon's acknowledged because they had confidence in whatever he says to God is going to be taken.
Just like his father prayed, and he said, you brought us out of Egypt. Egypt is the pivotal point. This was the part of their life where things were the worst, where the entire nation cried to God. Before Egypt, they went in, they survived the famine. Yes, the Bible is back and forth with the understanding of this lineage, but when you look at the lineages, yes, you have rough people, but they did not have what they had in 400 years in Egypt. Constant day in, day out torture. Waking up, working, sleeping. Your kids aren't your children. It was torture. So this cry that they are reminded of, it's like God saying, remember, or anytime someone is praying, it's saying, remember the worst of who we were. Notice what I'm saying, the worst of who we were, not their situation. Because everything in Egypt, some of those people that were in that land forgot where they came from. It's 400 years. They didn't carry on the tradition. So when you hear this, remember how worse we were, because as 12 tribes in Egypt, we were divided. Look at the promise of us being back together, whole as, shall I say, one body. They actually was operating as one body as they went. What did he say? Hey, if that person is causing y'all to sin, open up the ground, get rid of them, because that's how important the body is. But a scattered, moving all about. They didn't have rest, like you said. Now we see that the one body is in one place. It is the center where the whole entire world can come and find God. And Solomon is hitting that with his people. He does not leave us. So incline our hearts to himself, to walk in all his ways, to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings, which he commands our Father. And let these words of mine, now here's where Solomon puts his stamp on it. And let these words of mine, which I have made with supplication before the Lord, be near the Lord our God, day and night, to maintain the cause of his servants and the cause of his people Israel to the matters of each day in its day. Like that right there is like I've said all I can say, but let me hit this stamp real quick. That each person, I don't know what it may be, but each person in each matter of his day, if they call on you, you hear them.
I like verse 58, where he says that he may, speaking of God, may incline our hearts to himself. Nobody can boast about even then obedience being wholly themselves doing it. It is God who inclines the heart.
Now, you know what? That's a beautiful thing you said, because let's go to 60. So that all people of the earth might know that the Lord, that the Lord is God, it's mine, and there is no one else. Incline our hearts to only see you and understand there is no other God. Now, sometimes we understand that what we say to God has impact to God on us. Meaning, Solomon right here is saying a prayer of prayer which God is listening to attentively. So much attentively that God is going to come to him the next day and say, I heard everything you said. But you see how this is also Solomon's point right here, where he's putting also a nail, not a nail in his coffin, because I don't want to say it like that, but he's basically reiterating, I know the rules.
Go ahead, finish the point here. In 58, he's speaking for the nation when he says incline our hearts. And so as they obeyed, it was the Lord moving their hearts to do such a thing. I'm glad you went to 60, because when you get to verse 60, he's looking at the rest of the nations, the Gentile nations, so that all the people of the earth, and he goes outside the nation now, that the Gentile nations also may know him, and their hearts may be inclined.
Remember, he never closed it out. He told you, if the stranger comes here, he didn't just say the stranger in the world is out there, and he extended it. But the stranger had the same rights to saddle their donkey, come up to the temple, and ask for the same forgiveness everybody else had. Right? We see that here. So the stranger has not only just been grafted in by a conversation of the world, the stranger has been invited into the house, because the stranger comes with the intention to serve the Lord. Remember, it said if they came from afar, a stranger that came from afar to come to this house to seek you and ask for forgiveness, you shall forgive. That did not say, when they said stranger and said you shall forgive, that lets anyone who sees this text clearly understand that everyone has access to forgiveness. Now, when I say access, because all of these things require something inside. Now, when we look at this, some people, I don't want to attest this to salvation, because Solomon is already talking about people that are in there. But we know that those people who come have heard. They didn't just say, well, wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm gonna go to the temple in Jerusalem. They may have. But for the majority, they heard, just like Rahab, when she was letting the two down. What did she say? I heard what the God of Israel did to Egypt. I fear him, therefore I will not let these people in. I will let you down out the window. But make me one promise, that when you come back to destroy this city, that you will spare me.
But before, but I always gotta find some connections between this and us. And when the nation of Israel gathered, that's like God's people coming together, right? And he's saying, you were saying how strangers have access to forgiveness. And we were talking about how there was a time when, in ignorance, you would just invite anybody to the gathering, to church. There was a time when you would just invite somebody. And now, if you understand that when we come together, these are God's people. So we want to share with them about God out there, they can, if a stranger, what I'm getting at, Peter, is instead of inviting someone to church that we don't know if they're believers or not,
Mhm.
we share the Lord with them out there. But if they just show up to the gathering, if they just show up here, we talked about it. We're not going to turn anybody away just because they're a stranger. They do have access, but we just want to make sure we understand that there's a corporate privilege here that we have, and
and I'm picking up what you're saying. It is a very rare occurrence that even if a stranger walks through that door, that it's not a God-led intention. Very rare occurrence. Because there are people that will walk through that door looking for arguments. I'm tracking what you're saying. If a person comes through that door on their own, genuinely they have heard and began to seek what they heard about, who would close the door to them? But if a person comes in and we know this person isn't saved, inviting them in would do nothing for them. They would just sit there waiting for arguments, and nobody here would give them any. So therefore, they just gave us however much time the sermon may have took, and you go home, we shake your hand, thanks for coming, hope you learned something. I get that. When we look at this, we're looking at the beacon of the world. We're looking at God's message is amplified going out to those because remember, the world is new. We forget how new the world is. Like when we hear about these conquests at this time while Israel is building up, the world is like tribes and other tribes that have beaten each other around all throughout Assyria, because Assyria is a name that when they come in, it's a combined group of people that kind of lost to each other, and it was like, well, let's just join forces. So when you look at the history of it, the people around them are kind of like, well, we don't have nothing. We just gonna make idols and war with each other until I've war with you so much that now we don't even war together. We just go war with you. And then we war with you so much that we don't even war together. We just go war with you until you have amassed a following, which eventually, if I was the first person to war with you, one of y'all who looked at me, I'm like, let's kill him. And then now you got this cycle of kings taking over kings, conquest. I just explained how the Greeks are going to come, how the Romans came. All of this came from that mindset, where this wasn't Israel mindset. It was the doors are open. You're free to come here and seek the God of Israel who forgives all sin. Because at this time in the world, guess what was known? Sin. Israel wasn't the only one making sacrifice. In the times when Adam came, then after that, you got Noah, right? Noah gets off the boat, he constructs an altar, make it, and then that village grows, and people grow. You think sacrifice got forgot somewhere in the process? Somebody went and said, well, you know what? I'm tired of believing what you believe. I'm going to construct this fan, and I'm going to make a sacrifice to it. And they started doing it. Because one day the fan blew air and they said, that must be God. They gave credit to things that wasn't. So sacrifice wasn't like, it wasn't a mystery that was going on around it. The Greeks sacrificed so much that their streets stank from all the dead stuff that would be out there. So even in the times of Jesus, guess what they were still doing? Sacrificing. This is what, and in fact, the next verse, we're going to see how much they sacrifice. I didn't talk of it just to bring it to the next verse, but we're going to see how much is slaughtered here. All right?
62.
No,
I mean, I don't have to if you got something else.
No, I used to get ready to talk about the sacrifice.
Well, I was going to finish at 61. But if you want me to, where you go to,
before you
No, I didn't
go,
want to go that far yet.
okay,
I wanted you to hit 61.
I got you.
before you go, understanding this right here, this prayer that he's doing here, the intercession prayer for his people, God's people, and those that, like I said, the beacon will come about, that God would make for them to come and go forth with obedience to him.
Right. Because anyone who's coming to seek him will learn the ways of those that were there. Because what is the Israel? So when we think about the going to Israel, and I'm not trying to belabor this long, but when we think about going to Israel, right? People should walk into Israel. You ever have an event or a function, and when you walk in, you know that people are a certain way in there. You walk like, wow, these people do this a certain way, and they do that a certain way, and then when you look and you say, sir, why do you fold the napkins a certain way? Why do you hang your coat up a certain way? And they'll say, well, because this is what God has told us to do. This is how he leads us on his path. And you say, wow, I came here to visit that, and that sounds like a peaceful lifestyle because everybody here is at peace. I want to experienced this. Like, not saying that this is what they came for, to see this. Not saying, I came here and I experienced and now I want to see it. They walked in and the house was the way the house was supposed to be. You know how many people come in Firm Foundation that I've invited or my wife invited or, you know, friends come through and you know what they say? Wow, it's different. That's how walking in Israel was supposed to be for the stranger. When the gates open, it was different. The first thing you saw was this beautiful golden temple on the top of the hill. And nobody was trying to steal from it, rob it. The people were going in and out. They were going broken and come out smiling because they made their sacrifice. Whatever God was weighing heavy on their head for, they took it to the altar, their pigeons, their lambs, their goats, and they put it there and they said, this is all I have for sacrifice. They killed it, they did whatever they're supposed to, and afterwards they left. So can you imagine coming from a place like Assyria or any of those other far out nations that surround, Babylon, where you're tortured? Remember, these are people of conquest. The door wasn't just open because, you know, Solomon saying, come get forgiven. The door was open because the world was in a place where everybody was being put into captivity. Why is Solomon talking about captivity? Because the world around him was going in captivity. These people were, we see the peace, but underline, and I need you to see what's being protected by Israel being under the cover of the one true living God.
Because when we read the Bible, we're thinking captivity. Well, we know in Egypt they weren't captive. But when it came to Babylon, we see that story and we think that's it. But like you said, they knew other nations was being conquered. You know, when they're at peace. You know, so I got it. Yeah.
We see the scriptures. This is salvation. This is the salvific path that we are on. So we follow these lines. But if you look around the rest of the world while we being saved, because we are in this, while we being saved, the rest of the world is over here massing up shields, spears. Remember what the Israelites fought with in the beginning? Beat down plowshares, while everybody else was out there with swords, brass, weaponry. Now we see that the world around them is growing. Solomon is even in this verse, he's going to say, well, later on, he'll say, I got to beat me some shields and get me the chariots and stuff like that. These are the things that, even though Solomon is in a state of peace, you see the war around him.
Bring that to I've been asked for what we're doing right now. You got China, North Korea, they have to hide out to do this. You know, we come in here, you know, we're able to do this openly. You don't have to hide and go through the back door. We're at peace doing this like they was at peace here.
I was just at the house, and I promise you, me and Angelique was sitting on the back porch, and I looked at her and I said, you know, the funny thing about America is we have the most freedom to be a Christian. I can stand here right now. You recording this, Justin? I believe in Jesus Christ, and I will die for that. You see how we can say that so freely? But if I was in another country and I said that and I was broadcasting, they would come here and kill us all. We don't understand the freedoms that we got. It's almost as if the nation is so free, they forgot about God. Sounds familiar, right?
Protecting us. It's not the president.
It's not, no one else is protecting or you see what I'm saying? Solomon is saying what I'm saying. I don't know how to say it other than he said it. In fact, I read the words that he said. He's telling Israel, you guys are free. You are at peace. If you leave here, you still can get forgiveness, but I need you to understand that Solomon is also the wisest. And a wise person don't sit around foolishly and watch the world around him fight and not be prepared. You see what I'm saying? Solomon is wise, even in his foolishness. He's prepared. You read this chapter. Anybody read this and see war coming? Anybody see war coming? I'm talking about if we stopped right here in this prayer, does anybody see war coming? No. Well, why is Solomon talking about captivity? If war wasn't coming, it wouldn't even be a conversation. Dear Lord, they are never going to get us. We're going to keep running like the road runner, beat, beat. Chase me, Wally Cody, because it ain't happening. But Solomon is speaking things that saying, If projection. Why? Because around them, this is happening. And Lord, if this was to happen to us by us going against what you have put in front of us, then please allow us when we're in captivity to at least still pray, to look to you and ask for forgiveness. Whew, that's a good one. I like that. Now, if you go to 61, let your hearts therefore be perfect to the Lord our God, to walk in his laws and his commands, all at this day. Very specific. When I see stuff like that, it's like, man, that's a very specific way of things. It's kind of like closing out a contract. Like, you ever hear, there's a word in there, that, what is perpetual state of the universe. This is the reason why I would never want to ever be a celebrity, because they sign a contract, and on that contract it says that we own this likeness through all the perpetual states of the universe. I watched Dave Chappelle's comedy strip. He explained it all. It's pretty funny. But when I heard the perpetual state of the universe, I said, wow, that's interesting. Let me look it up, because you're not going to say something to me. And when I found out what perpetual state of the universe means, it means that every dimension of your mind, we own it, even in the dimension of death. See, you see how that was? You don't even have to see that. But we see Solomon right here. And if you don't think that last line is the same stamp as at this day, he closed it. Because the next thing Solomon did was, and Solomon, all of Israel with him, slaughtered before the Lord. And Solomon slaughtered a peace offering, which he slaughtered. Now, Solomon's on the inside. A peace offering. No, he's not on the inside. He actually had to come outside. Remember what I said? They were slaughtering so many? He got 22,000. He got 22. Help me out with my numbers, because you know I'm bad. There it is, 22,000 bulls, and he got
20,000 sheep.
There it is. So Solomon is slaughtering enough for all of Israel, because remember, this is also a festival. The command is in plenty. The people are at peace. They have been prayed for. The temple is built. Solomon is doing everything. Now, I got a question. Is the temple complete? No. What makes the temple not complete? Huh? The ark got been there. We got that a couple times ago. Yeah, what's missing from the temple? The temple complete, right? Solomon is slaughtered. Solomon did everything else. Solomon prayed for the people. See, I think it ends where it says, and the people go in their tents happy afterwards. The party was over. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to miss anything. Please.
Yeah, you notice in 62, and look what they're doing. They're up, and they enthusiasm is running high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in 61, he's also telling them this, as it is now, enthusiasm running high, always be enthusiastic about the Lord. In other words, as time go on, don't let this die down. You ever seen a person just come to Christ? Like when we put this building up, enthusiasm was high, and as time going, it kind of dies down. If you start being unfaithful, not obeying. Okay, so he's saying in 61, while we're enthusiastically high, let it always be this way. And we see now when we get to 62 all down, they are high into this festival, enthusiastically running high. Everybody's willing, everybody's saying they're going to obey, and they are. And as we read the story, it's going to die down. But he says in 61, let it always be this way.
Shall be perfect for our Lord. Always focused on him. And Solomon slaughtered the slaughterings, offering their offerings. And then the last part of 63. I didn't skip 62. I want you to 63 because we pretty much do it. Thank you. Thus, the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. Some say house, some say may say but this might say all the children. Not just some, all. Even the people that came as strangers. On that day, the sovereign, the king set apart the middle of the courtyard. He made a hole. It was in the front of the house. Remember, there's that you got your brazen bulls on the outside, and then you got a bigger brazen altar on the inside because stuff is burned also on the inside. So Solomon hollowed it, made it sanctified, a whole courtyard. So now we see what you got. Because it's part of the house. Because inside of that courtyard where they were making a sacrifice and making a sacrifice to the Lord, it had to be clean.
So when the people bring a sacrifice, they had a lot of altars.
Right. Well, it's only one big burning brazen altar they put everything on. But it's go ahead.
Read it here. He consecrated the outside of it.
Right.
Not just the inside, because there were so much to be.
There was so much being sacrificed.
He consecrated it like a bigger area.
So it could be holy.
Right.
The whole area, Solomon came outside and he made the entire area holy. But remember, this area was always supposed to be holy because guess what? It's inside the temple walls. They're bringing sacrifice. They didn't say we're going to build this brazen bull on the outside, the bigger one, just in case. They knew what was coming. This was a beacon. That's why I keep asking, is the temple complete? Because there's still things to do. Don't get caught up on the sections of work and miss the entire work because we'll know when the entire work is done. But I like asking that question because a lot of times in my coming up and learning, hearing in church, a lot of people always stop in Solomon's story or get to a point and they talk about that as if that's completion. But we have to see the complete job to see the full works that was done. All right. So he consecrated the yard because it was too small to contain all the ascendant offerings and the peace offerings and the fat offerings that was out there. And Solomon at that time performed the festival. Now we already know it was the festival of booths. And all of Israel was with him and greatly assembled in front of the entrance of Hamath to the Wadi, which is the valley of Egypt, before the Lord our God. 7 days and 7 nights, 14 days. On the 8th day, he sent people away. Time for y'all to go home. The party is over. We don't slaughter everything we need to slaughter. We had us a good time. We out here praising the Lord. I want y'all to get out of here. The party is over. We got to clean this stuff up. We got things to do. So Solomon sent the people away. And they blessed the king. Solomon, you are great. We love you. You're the best. And went away to their tents, rejoicing and glad of heart for all the goodness that the Lord has done for his servant David. Now look, you thought this story was gonna be like it was gonna say all he did for Solomon. Solomon's not left out of this, but this is what he promised to David. He never told Solomon because Solomon was in the womb. Think about Agent Zero back in the day. This is Agent Zero right here. Solomon was in the womb and he already had a mission. Solomon literally had a mission before he was born to build a temple. But Solomon did not. He did his job. He got the credit for it. But when it comes down to it, the people said, had done for his servant David. Because that's who the promise was made to. So we see that everything that we just read about Solomon was a benefactor of the Father. Everything we just read about Solomon building that temple is because it was a promise to David. And the people out, didn't y'all? And for Israel, his people. If you had to break it down in 2 words, God did it for king and people. He loved his people. He loved his king. He put him there. Now, I was thinking about yesterday, like, man, the arrogance of them asking for a king, when we really think about that, that is an arrogant thing to ask someone who controls everything to give you someone who has no control over anything. But we see that God honored that because he found a man after his own heart. He found people that he was willing to give to take as his inheritance. All right. I got time. Here we go. Now, and it came to be when Solomon had finished building the house of the Lord and the house of the king and all that Solomon desires, which he was pleased to do, the Lord came back. That the Lord appeared to Solomon the second time. Because remember the first time he appeared to Solomon, you remember what he gave him? What he had? That was the wisdom, right? That was all the things that, hey, this is what you doing going forward. This is going to make you wise in this kingdom. It's for the people. We see that Solomon's still carrying that wisdom for the people in his prayers, in his activities, and the things that he's doing. And the Lord comes back. Now, after hearing all of what Solomon requested, this is what the Lord said. And the Lord said to him, I have heard your prayers and supplications that you have made before me. Right? It was never a question, was God listening? We knew that. I have set this house apart or made it holy, which you have built to put my name. Therefore, my eyes and my heart shall always be there. Shall always be there. Now, anybody got that perpetual word in there? Perpetually. That means through every state, I will always be watching that. In every thought, I'm always going to be looking, because Solomon's prayer had a lot of grounds to cover, right? I'm always going to be looking there because people are looking there for prayer. That's what what you got.
Well, he's let him know his answer, because if you go to 1 Kings 8:29, it's when Solomon asked him that your eyes may be open toward his house day and night. But when he answers the prayer here in 9:3, he says, my eyes and my heart will be there perpetually. So he did more.
He always goes more around. Remember Solomon? Remember when I said the first time he went back to visit Solomon? Solomon only asked him one thing. Said, wisdom, lead the people. Said, because you, and now I'm gonna get that. See, he always picking on you being ahead of class. Next time you're gonna have to send. Next time you're gonna have to send in front, because we see that Solomon is right. Everything that Solomon desired, he got it. Even everything has been given to him. We see that right here. The Lord has answered Solomon's prayers from then. He's showing him that I heard it. In fact, the first thing he said is, I heard you. So we know he heard everything that was said before this. And God said to him, I have heard your prayers and your supplication to build. I'm moving around here because I know we read it. To build my name there forever, and my eyes and my heart will always be there, or perpetually. And now here's the thing where I heard your prayer. I have given you everything that you asked for. Here is the rest. And if you walk before me as your father walked, in integrity of the heart, in uprightness, to do according to all that I've commanded you. If you guard my laws, because now that's the thing. It's being taken off of David and put on to Solomon. It's being taken off. You did everything that your dad told you to do. You did. Now let's see what you're going to do. So when we look at everything before this, anyone who talks about Solomon, whatever, up until this point, Solomon is a straight shooter. He is on point with everything he did. He is the most obedient son in the world. But now he has went into him and God talking and communing. He communed with him first. God gave him the wisdom to lead his people. He was young, and now he's communing with him again. All right. And if you walk before me as your father did, with integrity of heart. Integrity of heart. And somebody who come back and be like, man, what was up with David? David, what? You sure? But when you think about it, it's the same heart that God said that David had, was because it was a heart after his own, right? But if you listen to the story before he told that heart after his own, he said, because he did what? What made his heart after his own? He said, why did David have the heart after his own? Anybody? It was something as simple as he tended to his father's sheep. Sound very simple. David, now, and I'm going to leave it here. He tended to his father's sheep. Sheep tending was normally left to the people who weren't warriors, the shepherds, the ones who weren't fighting. David was the youngest. His brothers was of age. We all know this story, right? So when we see David doing the job, not trying to run out to the battlefield, we see that a little later. We see David doing staying at home, except when his fathers tell him to. We see that the heart has always been for the what? The flock, the people. I raised you up from a shepherd to do the same thing you did as a shepherd. Lead the flock. Solomon, it is your turn to do that same thing. Have a heart for the people. Be upright with the people. lead the way that the people will see you as an example. And I'm gonna put a pin in it right here. That way we don't dig all into it. We'll continue to go. But right now, Solomon is making I'm not gonna say a covenant, but he
Promises and warnings.
promises and warnings. So thank y'all for listening. He not under David. Solomon, you ain't 13 no more. You on your own. It's time for you to grow up.